Hey everyone, welcome back to Utility Sports. And in today's video, we're taking another look at the 2022 NFL Draft. We're bringing another rendition of this NFL mock draft. Remember, this is a series. Things are going to change throughout the process. We're bringing you the latest in the sports world, coming from college football into the NFL, how those two correlate to each other. And if you're interested in winning a free NFL jersey, that is right, a Justin Fields free jersey for the Chicago Bears, all you have to do to be entered for that jersey giveaway is leave a like on today's video, hit that subscribe button. That's the most important one. And also leave a comment on the video. Could be anything like the words jersey giveaway, your thoughts on your favorite team selection in the mock draft. Just let us know anything and you'll be entered into the jersey giveaway if you meet all three of those criteria. And now, Austin, let's jump into it here. Following a crazy week 9, we are recording this before the Sunday night matchup between the Los Angeles Rams and Tennessee Titans. And we've got the Detroit Lions here on the board. They're on a bye week this week. We thought that maybe they could build some steam rolling up into their bye week. Ended up getting, stepped on a little bit by Philadelphia a couple weeks ago. If you're building for Detroit, where do you have to start?
It all starts with the quarterback, right? And that's why when you get to this point in the draft, you always want to be looking quarterback. And for the Detroit Lions, there are obviously other issues outside of that position. I think that you do have to look at the number one guy on the board for me at this point is Matt Corral at that quarterback position. I don't think he's necessarily the best player in the draft. However, I think this obviously fills their need positionally. I don't think they're going to be super patient with Jared Goff. I don't think they're going to give him multiple years to really prove himself in that system. Yes, he doesn't have the wide receivers to really go out and win. However, I don't think they're going to be patient. I think they will go ahead and select a quarterback.
I think there's going to be a real divide amongst Lions fans in our comment section on this one, Austin. Matt Corral just outperformed Malik Willis in a matchup between Liberty and Ole Miss. He got the better of him, cements himself as QB1 here now in this mock draft, and you have him going first overall. I'm sure some Lions fans are looking at the board saying, hey, Kayvon Thibodeau is here. Kyle Hamilton is here. Derek Stingley's here. Those are probably the three best players in the class. Why are they not going there in this mock?
I think it's really a pressure for Detroit to address that quarterback spot. I think that Thibodeau is actually probably the best fit for this team. I think that he could definitely help them out in their front seven, which they desperately need. However, there's just going to be a lot of pressure from ownership to go ahead and address that quarterback spot because that's always the number one blame when things aren't going right.
Right. The interesting scenario for Detroit, they have 2 first-round picks this year, 2 first-round picks next year. They have a lot of flexibility. They could go QB pick 1 this year. If not, if they decide to just go best player available, a guy like Kayvon Thibodeau, then they always have next year as well. It's going to be an interesting thing, and I think this is really going to be the pick that probably varies the most throughout this process as we get a better idea where Detroit would be looking if they land the number 1 pick. Moving into 2, we got the 1-8 Houston Texans, lost to the Miami Dolphins today, and just haven't really gotten things rolling for this team. They ended up trading away Mark Ingram. Brandon Cooks is still there. Tyrod Taylor finally back from injury. Austin, if you're building for Houston, are you looking at that quarterback spot as well, or are you just going best player available here for Houston?
With the whole Deshaun Watson situation, we don't know exactly what's going to happen with him. However, I think that they will look at that quarterback spot. Deshaun Watson will not be their quarterback moving forward. Malik Willis, I know he threw 3 picks this week in that game against Ole Miss, but I think it goes beyond that. It's what can we build? What can we mold? He's got a great release, strong arm, and he's a dynamic athlete. What more do you need in a moldable quarterback than that group of things? Now, we look at quarterbacks in the past, like Justin Herbert, like Josh Allen. They had those moldable things that really made them stick out in the draft. Guys like Sam Howell just don't have that, right? And we've seen that in the past. Guys like Blaine Gabbert remind me of that kind of the Sam Howell, just don't have one of those elite traits, one of those elite arms, or one, the ability to move in the pocket. You got to have one or the other for sure. And Malik Willis has some of those physical tools that you need. So that's where I'm going.
Here we have quarterbacks go 1 and 2, and there's some fans who are out there saying, wow, he has Corral and Willis go 1-2. Remember a few years back when it was the Los Angeles Rams picking 1 after moving up, the Philadelphia Eagles picking 2. That class started with Jared Goff and Carson Wentz, who neither of those quarterbacks are playing for their original team. This is, again, a mock for what we think is going to possibly happen. Malik Willis goes second. We have a QB go 1. Quarterback's the most important position on the field at all times. 2 of them go back-to-back to start this mock draft off, which leaves us here at 3 with Philadelphia, and they have to have a wide grin at this point. They must be so happy to see this. This pick, of course, comes from the Miami Dolphins. Kayvon Thibodeau has got to be the selection here, right, Austin?
Yeah, Kayvon Thibodeau is going to be the pick because he's just the most dynamic player in the entire draft. He has the highest ceiling of all of these players. A star defensive end that can really get after the quarterback, but he also plays the run very well in addition to that. So they are happy. They have contract situations that make this a pick that's worthwhile, worth doing. And even if they feel like they have a nice enough and deep enough room at that DN spot, they will make adjustments accordingly. That's why Thibodeau is going to go here.
Thibodeau, a very exciting pick out of Oregon, someone with elite athletic skills and traits, with also very good technical fundamentals. He's going to be a phenomenal player in Philadelphia. Gets a home run pick here, third overall. Pick number 4, we transition into my New York Jets. They got their butts kicked by the Indianapolis Colts on Thursday Night Football. And there was a lot of issues with containing the run game. Jonathan Taylor had his way with us all game long. Of course, the Colts have a great offensive line. However, the Jets just looked outmatched in that game. How concerned are you about the defensive front? I know that Jets fans look at that as a big, strong point. They struggled mightily, and they've had issues throughout the year too. I know that they've had some bright spots along that defensive line. However, I don't necessarily know if I'm sold on it long term. I'm not sold on the secondary long term either. Which way are you going here for New York?
It's tough because you really want to address that front seven for the Jets. But for me, it's going with the most talented player on the board. I think that's what you need to do in this situation. Derek Stingley Jr. is going to be that guy. Great athlete, great in man coverage, had a season ending foot injury that is, we're not going to be able to see him anymore, but his resume speaks for himself. He came in as a true freshman and dominated. And, we see flashes of elite corner in him for sure. I definitely think he brings that to the next level. The New York Jets have been looking for that corner since Darrelle Revis.
The Jets in the last 15 years, when they were at their best, they had 2 elite offensive linemen, a run game behind them, so quarterback play, and elite cover corners. Hopefully, Derek Stingley gives them that element. Mekhi Becton, Elijah Vera Tucker hopefully become those building blocks along the offensive line. Then you just have to piece together the run game with a running back piece, and you're looking at a much improved New York Jets football team. Pick 5, we got your Jacksonville Jaguars here, Austin. They pulled off a historic win over the Buffalo Bills by the score of 9-6. And I say historic because it was played like an old school style game. Josh Allen made a ton of plays, and I'm not talking about the Bills quarterback here. Of course, Josh Allen for the Jaguars became the first ever player in NFL history to sack a quarterback with the exact same name as him. Also had an interception that game off of the Bills, Josh Allen. Very interesting game as a whole. The Jaguars moved to 2-6. What's your thoughts on the Jaguars so far this year, and where do they go 5th overall?
Their secondary is a disaster. I can't stress that enough. They have to look at safety. I think that's where you're really struggling. Andrew Wingard is not going to be the safety of the future for this team. I've been very vocal about it. They struggle on that back end for sure. He did not play that bad this game, so I will give him moderate amount of credit there. So Kyle Hamilton, 6'4", a guy that's tremendous in the box. That's where he is best. However, he can play that deep safety very, very well. Instinctual player and all around, arguably like a top 3 player in the class in terms of overall talent. Right now, he's a guy that you can really trust on that back end of your defense, and that's exactly what Jacksonville's lacking at this current moment.
Kyle Hamilton, the top safety in this year's class, goes to a team that is extremely safety needy in Jacksonville. I think that he's a phenomenal fit there, gives them some help in both the run game and the pass game as an over-the-top safety when he's in that area as well. Just very, very good overall player. 5th overall, great value for Jacksonville. Pick 6, we got the Washington football team, who I think finds himself in an interesting situation here, picking 6th overall with already the 2 top quarterbacks in this year's class off the board, going 1 and 2. Of course, Aiden Hutchinson's out here. Of course, that's the fun pick if you really want to build up that defensive front more. However, that's probably not the most likely. You've got 2 really good offensive linemen here in Evan Neal, Tyler Linderbaum, which could make some sense. They took Sam Cosmi in the 2nd round last year. They've got some good options here on the board. Where do you have Washington going?
Once again, I'm going to stress that quarterback position, and I'm not in love with the pick in terms of who he is as a player, but I think Washington is carefully monitoring that quarterback spot. Sam Howell is going to be the guy. We've seen a little bit of a drop off once he lost some of those weapons going to the NFL. He had a very, very loaded running back room, loaded receiver room, so much talent around him. A little bit of a drop off just because of the inexperience with some of those guys that were replacing the eventual NFL starters. So Sam Howell is the pick. He has been able to adjust. He's turned things around a little bit. I think Washington is starving for a quarterback.
I think Sam Howell is a good player. The question there is what's his long-term upside really in the NFL? Washington, he's an immediate improvement over Taylor Heineke in terms of what he presents as an actual thrower of the football. And I think that it makes some sense for Washington. They have a lot of those pieces. They've got a really nice defense that's young, has a lot of playmakers on that side of the ball. They need a quarterback bad. They reach maybe a little bit here on Sam Howell. However, again, it is the quarterback position, most important position in your mock draft, having 3 go so far in the top 6. Pick 7, we got Philadelphia here again. Already went with Kayvon Thibodeau. Now, this is a rare opportunity for them to go and grab one of the elite offensive linemen in this class. Aiden Hutchinson, who I think is one of the fan favorites on the channel as well, still sits out here. Does Philadelphia double dip on that edge position? Maybe come back, grab an offensive lineman here. Where are you thinking?
Yeah, so I strongly considered Aiden Hutchinson at this number 7 spot because they could really load up that front 7. However, I'm going to opt to go with a guy like Evan Neal. Reason being, he's just so talented. It's hard for Philadelphia to sit there and look at him and think, man, do we actually just pass on him? I think it's very, very likely if they got to number 7, they would select Evan Neal. Great athlete, great in pass protection. A lot of teams at this spot or this area are going to be drilling over trying to trade up and get this guy. Like kind of how the whole Penei Sewell thing panned out last year during the draft. Definitely heard some rumors of people trying to move up. I think Evan Neal presents that same opportunity.
Evan Neal, a really good grab here. We see Philadelphia get a lot better on both sides of the football in their trench play, grabbing both Kayvon Thibodeau and Evan Neal. At this point, Philadelphia has been a really exciting team. They have one more pick here in the first round. That is, of course, coming from Indianapolis, assuming that Carson Wentz does meet that 75% snap threshold. Pick 8, we have the New York Giants here, Austin. And I think Aiden Hutchinson is probably the one that jumps off the screen to me here. Just the best talent on the board yet at this point, in my opinion. And I think that they could use an edge opposite Leonard Williams. Is Aiden Hutchinson the selection?
Yeah, I think that he is going to be the pick here. The New York Giants are looking for another pass rusher. Aiden Hutchinson's been one of the biggest risers this year. He's been arguably one of the most dominant pass rushers in terms of actually generating pressures and QB hits. So you have to love him at this spot for the New York Giants. They're continuing to build that defense. They got last year, they ended up getting Kadarius Toney, a playmaker for Daniel Jones. Now they're going to go to the defensive side of the ball and grab Hutchinson.
They did such a good job last year moving down with Chicago for that Justin Fields trade because they put themselves in a position to have 2 first-round picks this year. Very well could have 2 picks in the top 10. They're sitting 11. We'll get back to them here in just a second. Pick 9, we got the Miami Dolphins here now on the board. They've been struggling to find a long-term starting center there for quite some time. They also have Tua Tagovailoa, where I think there's a little bit of question marks. Deshaun Watson, of course, always has his name in the rumor mill there in Miami. Where are you looking for Miami? I think they're one of the more interesting teams at this point in the mock draft process.
Yeah, you nailed it. They need a center, and there's the perfect guy right here. Tyler Linderbaum's finally getting some more respect, him jumping all the way to the number 6 ranking. We've been drafting him far higher than his ranking in ADP on this site, and I think we were ahead of the curve on that one. Tyler Linderbaum, an absolutely dominant center, smart, gets to that second level. He's really good in the run game. He's awesome in the pass game as well. So I'm going to go with Linderbaum here at 9.
I think center is honestly one of the most underrated positions in all of football. You know, everyone talks about the quarterback, the tackle, the edge, and then we're starting to get to the point where people talk about cornerbacks that way as well. Center is really the glue to an offensive line. They diagnose a lot of the pass protections that they need, also diagnose run fits, run schemes, where they're going to go and get their blocks into the second, third level in certain trap play, certain pulling situations for guards. Tyler Linderbaum is going to be great in that area. Very smart player, comes into Miami. I think he's going to be a phenomenal asset for a young quarterback in Tua Tagovailoa. Pick 10 now, we got the New York Jets here. Remember, went with Derek Stingley earlier in this draft. Now at 10 here, this pick comes from Seattle. And with Geno Smith still being the starting quarterback there with Russell Wilson's injury, very likely we see this pick stay in that top 15 area by the end of the year. Austin, how good of a situation is this for New York with how the injury with Russell Wilson panned out? And also, where do you have the Jets going?
Now, they're very fortunate in terms of that pick now going to be in that top 15 range. It really depends on when Russell Wilson comes back and how well they're able to, re-gel and get everything going once again. So for the New York Jets, I do look along that defensive line. Reason being, there are some really talented guys on the board here. I think DeMarvin Leal fits the best. We've been consistently mocking this, reason being versatility along that defensive line. He's played D tackle, he's played edge. There's so much he can do along a defensive line. I think he has a little ways to go in the run game. I think if you remember in that Alabama game, got flushed out a little bit in that run game. However, he's really, really good at getting to the quarterback. I think the Jets would be super happy to select him at this spot.
Now, some Jets fans definitely take a little bit of an issue with going with a defensive lineman in round one. We've seen it in our comment section. I just want to urge Jets fans, we don't know what Carl Lawson's going to look like coming back from injury. Shaq Lawson's not this level of playmaker along the defensive front. Fatukasi is no DeMarvin Leal. This is a significant upgrade. You're looking at a true day one talent in DeMarvin Leal, someone that you just can't find and replace. Yes, they've done a good job bringing in some nice pieces along the defensive line. And those guys are going to be very, very good still. When you add another elite talent along that defensive front, it empowers other edge rushers and empowers other players along the defensive line. DeMarvin Leal is a very, very good pick here. Even if it doesn't look like the most obvious need, it is an immediate upgrade at one of the most important spots in all of football, that defensive line. DeMarvin Leal, a home run pick here in my estimation for the New York Jets. Pick 11, we're staying in New York at MetLife Stadium here with the Giants. Of course, earlier on, we had their selection at 8. Now at 11, Austin, this pick comes from the Chicago Bears for that Justin Fields trade. Remember, you can get that jersey in the jersey giveaway. Like, subscribe, and comment. Where do you have the Giants going here now, Austin?
I have them sticking on the defensive side of the ball. Nakobe Dean, that's going to be my pick. Once again, they finally moved up his ranking to that 13. We've been ranking him or drafting him higher than these two rankings and ADPs. So I love this pick for the New York Giants. He's arguably the best athlete amongst all of the linebackers. He really is going to fit into this system. I think Nakobe Dean could be a huge immediate impact player for these guys. He excels on the run. He's terrific there. A little ways to go in terms of defending the pass, but it doesn't matter. When you get a great athlete like this, you want to mold them.
Looking at the Giants, they come in with Aiden Hutchinson at pick 8. They already have built out that secondary very well through free agency. They've got some nice young pieces on the back end. Then you come in at a very, very good linebacker who's really good in run support in Nakobe Dean with that athleticism into the middle. Kind of ties everything together for that defense. You're going to look at one of the better units moving forward with good youth. Also, some guys on nice contracts there. Just an all-around good situation for the New York Giants. Pick 12, we got the Minnesota Vikings here, and Vikings fans probably not happy with how this season's gone for them. They sit at 3-5 currently. Mike Zimmer is on the hottest of hot seats right now, I would say. Austin, do you agree with that?
Absolutely. I think a lot of people are calling for Mike Zimmer to be out as the head coach. Now, I think it is going to happen. I think this is going to be the year that they move on from him. Now, let's address the pick in this situation. I think it all comes down to corner. We're going to be mocking corner a lot. Patrick Peterson's on a 1 year. Bashaud Breeland's on a 1 year. You have to look in that corner room. And there's a guy I really like that's still available. Kaiir Elam is going to be the pick here. Minnesota needs some more athletes on the perimeter, and I think that's what Kaiir Elam can give you. I think that corner is essentially the biggest need for this team. There's other areas of concern for sure. They might have to look at linebacker in the second round, depending on what happens with Anthony Barr. Very likely will be leaving in free agency.
Interesting side note on the Minnesota Vikings. Prior to this year, they had played the Baltimore Ravens 6 times in their history, went 3-3. Their 3 wins, they made it to the Super Bowl. Their 3 losses, they are not the Super Bowl, excuse me, the NFC Conference Championship game. Their 3 losses ended up with their coach getting fired that year. Of course, they lost today to the Baltimore Ravens. Does Mike Zimmer follow that trend for them? We will see this season. Pick 13, we got the Carolina Panthers here, another team who started out so well to begin the year 3-0, now sit at 4-5, and I think a lot of people are starting to hit the panic button, specifically on Sam Darnold. How concerned are you about Sam Darnold's performance, and does it impact your pick here?
Does not impact my pick. However, I'm very concerned. They're on potentially the wrong end of the quarterback where I think they'd feel comfortable taking one. However, I do think that Carolina can make some improvements to that secondary. And with that being said, I'm going to go with Jordan Battle, a guy that I've been consistently mocking around this top 20 area. But I think Jordan Battle definitely helps them out. You have Jeremy Chin, you have Jordan Battle, both guys that are phenomenal in the run game. They're really going to be able to stifle the run And I think Jordan Battle, in terms of his coverage ability, is getting there. I think it's going to take a little more time, but he's a great player on the back end, and him and Jeremy Chin are going to be dangerous.
They put a lot of emphasis into getting some young cornerback play there. They traded for CJ Henderson, drafted JC Horn this past year. Then you bring in Jordan Battle here, put him next to Jeremy Chin. Those two safeties are really going to embolden each other and let them play off of each other's strengths. I like this a lot for Carolina. You're looking at an elite young defense moving forward, especially if Jordan Battle is the selection 13th overall. Pick 14 now, we have the Indianapolis Colts here on the clock. This pick, of course, going to the Philadelphia Eagles, who've already had a phenomenal start to the draft here. Kayvon Thibodeau headlined it at pick 3. Where do you have the Eagles going now at this point?
I think we need to go to that secondary and make an improvement there. Ahmad Gardner is still sitting here. I think that they are severely underrating him in the rankings overall. Lengthy corner, doesn't give up touchdowns. We've said it over and over again. Super consistent in that secondary. You know what you're going to get out of him every single game. And for the Eagles, they definitely have to consider this as a great pick, good value spot here at the 14th selection. And everybody remember, this is from the Carson Wentz deal. That's why it does show the Indianapolis Colts.
This is an amazing draft haul here for the Philadelphia Eagles. They go ahead, grab Kayvon Thibodeau out of Oregon. Pick 7, they come back, grab DeMarvin Leal out of Alabama. Or not DeMarvin Leal, excuse me, Evan Neal. And then pick 14, they go with Ahmad Gardner out of Cincinnati, the top cornerback for the number 2 ranked Bearcats by the AP Top 25. Phenomenal draft here for Philadelphia Eagles. I know Eagles fans have been loving what they've seen on our mock draft so far. And this is just another continuation of that, another A-plus level draft here. 3 first-round picks in the top 15. That's hard to replicate, and you're getting elite defensive talent here and an elite offensive tackle as well. Pick 15, we're looking at the Kansas City Chiefs here now. Another team that we just haven't expected them to be up this high throughout the whole draft process. They're sitting at 5-4 currently. We'll see if they end up getting a little bit higher throughout the draft process. I'd expect them more into that 20s area. Austin, where do you have the Chiefs going here?
We're going to look in that secondary. I think that's going to be a big deal for them. Jaquan Brisker is a guy that's been a high riser so far this season. Finally gets some respect in the rankings. The Chiefs definitely need some help on that defense. I don't think that is a secret to anyone. I think in particular, they have to look at that safety spot, and we're not exactly sure what's going to happen with Tyrann Mathieu, but Jaquan Brisker is going to be a phenomenal guy to fill in.
Right, Tyrann Mathieu in the final year of his contract there in Kansas City. Also, burning some bridges, as it seems like, with some of his comments about the fan base, calling them toxic. Not a good situation there for Tyrann Mathieu, probably in his final season there with Kansas City. Pick 16, we got the Denver Broncos, who had a huge win over the Dallas Cowboys this week. I don't think a lot of people expected that after them trading Von Miller away and kind of changing the direction of that franchise. They sit here now 16th overall. Quarterback, I think, is a real concern for them long term. However, like you said earlier, kind of the back end of where the quarterback run is in this class so far. Where do you see Denver going?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of avenues that they could go with this one. I definitely consider George Karlaftis here, but I think they are feeling that pressure at the quarterback spot. I don't know if they feel Teddy Bridgewater is the franchise guy. I know there are some Bronco fans that really love him and think he can be that guy. I think Desmond Ridder actually is the better fit for this team. Dual threat quarterback. He's been great for Cincinnati so far this season. There's so much that this guy can do. He's a winner for sure, 100%. Denver is going to be happy that they draft Desmond Ridder at this spot. He's an upgrade over Teddy Bridgewater, and I think that they do consider edge, though, with the departure of Von Miller.
I think Denver is going to be one of the teams to watch over the next couple of years. They have 5 picks in the first 3 rounds this year after that Von Miller trade. They've got a lot of nice young pieces already, Patrick Surtain being the headliner there for them. I like what they have on their roster, and I think they're a couple years away from becoming really dangerous. Desmond Ridder could be a phenomenal grab for them, 16th overall. Pick 17, we're looking at the Cincinnati Bengals now at this point. George Karlaftis looks like a very attractive pick here. Put him along the defensive line with Trey Hendrickson. That could make some sense to me. You're also looking at Charles Cross out here, really good tackle. That could make some sense. Where are you really looking to value here for Cincinnati?
I think it's going to come to that tackle spot. We've been talking about it all year long. Ikem Ekwonu is going to be the pick, the best run blocker in the entire class. He's great in terms of his overall movement. Definitely a guy you can pull as well. There's so much to love about his game. I think having him on this offensive line, put him alongside of Jackson Carman, they're slowly starting to build out the line that's conducive for Joe Burrow, and I don't think they're going to push it off another year.
Right. I think looking at Cincinnati, everyone likes to talk about how key it is to protect their former number one overall pick in Joe Burrow. This pick also really helps Joe Mixon, who's having a really good season this year. He had signed that contract extension last year, and I think they want to see that extension through with him. Get through that last year of that extension because he's playing good football, bringing a nice run blocking tackle here in Ika Mekwanu. You're going to see really, really good results for that Cincinnati offense. Pick 18, we got the Cleveland Browns here, who have been in the news recently with the release of Odell Beckham Jr. Of course, crazy situation. The day that this comes out, this is coming out Monday, remember, for our Mock Draft Monday series. By now, you guys will know likely if Odell Beckham Jr. has been claimed on waivers. So that is extremely exciting. We'll have to check out the channel for a video on that. Austin, where do you have the Browns going now at 18?
I think that they are going to look at the edge spot. George Karlaftis is the pick, a guy who's been really getting after it this year. He is more explosive than people will give him credit for as well. Huge reason why Purdue has put together some big wins. He produces at a high level, really gets after that quarterback. I love him here at 18.
I love George Karlaftis. His freshman season at Purdue had 17 tackles for loss. He is going to be a really productive player in the NFL. You put him across from Myles Garrett, you add an elite run stopper next to one of the best pass rushers in all of football, and you've got a scary, scary combination there for Cleveland. Pick 19, we're looking at the Atlanta Falcons here now at this point, and I don't think we expected them to be picking 19th this far into the season. They're sitting at, I believe, 5-4 now. They've had a pretty solid year for what they really are, especially amidst the Calvin Ridley situation with him not playing. Of course, their strength of schedule hasn't been the hardest either, though. Austin, what do you make so far of Atlanta's season? And then where do you see them going with their selection?
They've been so up and down. It's hard to find some consistency with this team because at the start of the year, defensively, they were on pace to have one of the worst defensive seasons in their entire franchise history. They've turned it around as of late. Big win against New Orleans. Now, I'm going to be looking at quarterback for this spot, and I have Kenny Pickett going. Kenny Pickett has played himself into a first-round quarterback. He's a guy that can throw with anticipation, accuracy. I'm not sure about his long-term, if he has huge upside, but I think he's a quality quarterback at the next level. I think that's exactly what Atlanta is going to be looking for as well.
This goes to show how much of a series this is, how much the process changes throughout the draft. This is not something that stays status, does not happen to be the same mock week in, week out. Things change. Kenny Pickett's performance for the Pittsburgh Panthers this year has hoisted him into a first round selection. You see him here going pick 19 to the Atlanta Falcons. Pick 20, we've got the New England Patriots here, who also sit in 5-4, had a nice win over the Carolina Panthers and against former cornerback for them, Stephon Gilmore, this week. What do you think about the Patriots? Mac Jones so far, his rookie season, and then do they look for a wide receiver to help him moving forward?
Yeah, Mac Jones, I think a good word for him is just steady. We kind of expected that potentially he would be the most ready when it came to the first year. I think a lot of people thought it was either him or Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence has not looked the part in that way. But I think that they look wide receiver. They need another playmaker on that team, especially in the wide receiver room. Jacoby Myers, I mentioned it before. He's a good wide receiver, but I think you need a guy that can bring you to that top tier at the wide receiver spot. Garrett Wilson has that kind of upside. I am going with Wilson with this pick. I know New England probably they're always nervous about the whole first round wide receiver, and when they finally dipped their toe in the water and tried it, it was N'Keal Harry. So that's kind of the history on that.
Maybe a little discouraged to draft a wide receiver. However, Garrett Wilson, just a different story here. A much better player than N'Keal Harry. He's going to work out a lot better in the NFL, and I think this is a really good selection for New England. I think that Mac Jones discussion, too, kind of shows the importance of situation in the NFL, especially for young quarterbacks. Trevor Lawrence, coming into Jacksonville with DJ Chark basically missing the whole year, Laviska Shenault all of a sudden establishing a drop problem in year 2 of his NFL career. They've got some real question marks right now, the Jacksonville Jaguars do, and Trevor Lawrence is kind of battling some of those things, whereas Mac Jones is kind of taking it bit by bit there in New England. It's a better situation. They've got some better players around him, a much better defense to support him, and it makes sense why he's finding a little bit more success year 1, even though he's not quite the long-term upside quarterback that Trevor Lawrence is going to be. Pick 21, we got the Pittsburgh Steelers here, a team that's probably looking for that long-term upside quarterback, and at this point, the board's kind of thinned out for them. We've already seen 4 quarterbacks go off the board here. 5 quarterbacks go off the board. Do we see a 6th quarterback go here in round 1, Austin, or are we going best player available?
Now they've been flushed out. Those quarterbacks have been absolutely flushed out for the Steelers. They're going to go with Charles Cross here. I'm glad you said best player available, just considering that Pittsburgh needs to rebuild that offensive line. They want to get a lot better at tackle. Charles Cross is a phenomenal pass protector, and that's what this team is going to need long term once they find their franchise guy. I love the fit here.
I like it too. They need some help along that offensive line. I think this is something that's going to really benefit Najee Harris, who's had to make a lot out of nothing this year. He's been given the ball sometimes behind the line of scrimmage, both in the pass game and the run game, where there's really nothing there. And just because he's a special talent, he makes something happen. He turns negative yards into positive yards very often. I think Charles Cross is going to help him turn positive yards into even more positive yards down the road. Pick 22, we're looking at the Buffalo Bills here now at this point, a team that we've been, consistently mocking cornerback for them. There's a couple good ones here on the board here at the top. I think that they could use some help in some other areas as well. Running back's an interesting spot. Where do you see them going?
I definitely consider that running back spot, but this team loves their running back duo of Moss and Singletary. They need a corner. They definitely need a corner. I think that showed today against Jacksonville that they need one more. Trent McDuffie at that 5'10" frame. Phenomenal in zone. Definitely a guy that is very instinctual on that back end. Buffalo needs this. They have to go get another corner. He can play in the slot. He could potentially play outside, but I think this is a great fit for them. They want to improve that secondary. They feel comfortable with what they got at the safety spot, but they need to work on that corner room for sure.
That'll be huge for that defense there. Tre'Davious White was such a good grab for them a few years back. Got to come back now, find another one in Trent McDuffie, and you're looking at a really filled out Bills defense. They got some edges last year. Come back, get a cornerback this year. You're looking at a good long-term outlook for that Bills team, who's currently leading the AFC East. Pick 23, we got the New Orleans Saints here. Of course, very unfortunate what happened with Jameis Winston. We got the injury news. He's out for the remainder of the season with a very serious injury to the lower half of his body, of course. Austin, where do you see the Saints going 23 as their quarterback? Obviously, we've talked about them kind of running off the board. If a quarterback was here, would they take one based off of that injury to Jameis Winston? And then where do you have them actually going in this mock draft?
Yeah, I think they actually would be. I think they'd be hesitant to take one here at this spot. I'm going to have to go with Chris Olave at wide receiver. Reason being, they need another big play guy. I think we've seen them really struggle without Michael Thomas. Callaway having to be now the number one receiver for this team is really, really stressing them out in terms of that. Sean Payton's he's not able to do what he's accustomed to doing. Heavy reliance on Alvin Kamara. Chris Olave can be that big play receiver for them that they're desperately needing.
Pushing the ball down the field is a key point of emphasis this offseason, I'm sure, for the New Orleans Saints. Chris Olave really going to help out in that area. And the Saints have shown history of looking at Ohio State for draft prospects. You're looking at, of course, Michael Thomas, also Marshawn Lattimore, two of their best picks in recent memory. Chris Olave going to be another really good selection out of Ohio State. Pick 24, we're looking at the Dallas Cowboys here now, who just didn't get it going against Denver, struggled mightily in that game. However, I don't think that's really an indication of who this team is. They've got great offensive players. Trayvon Diggs has been a real playmaker for them defensively. Micah Parsons has looked the part like we expected all last draft process. Where do you see Dallas going here 24? Is it cornerback for sure with Andrew Booth Jr. here on the board?
Yeah, they need a boundary corner once again. Opposite of Trayvon Diggs, we're going to have Andrew Booth Jr. here. He doesn't play in the slot very often. He's going to be strictly an outside guy, and you can see it from his individual numbers. But Andrew Booth Jr. is going to fit into this defense very nicely, him and Trayvon Diggs. This team definitely needs one more corner. They could consider things outside of this, but I think corner is something that we're going to be consistently mocking here for Dallas.
Andrew Booth Jr., a phenomenal grab here. Someone who we could easily see be a top 20, maybe top 15 pick even after we get through all of the combine process, all that. He's got really good upside. I think Dallas grabbing him here 24th overall is something that Dallas Cowboy fans have to be very excited about. Pick 25, we're looking at the Las Vegas Raiders. Did not get the job done today in their matchup. They fell to the New York Giants. However, they've had a really good season, especially amidst all the drama, troubling scenarios around that team. John Gruden, then Henry Ruggs. They've had a tough time with things this year, and they've kind of battled some of that adversity and still put a pretty solid product out on the field every single weekend. Kingsley Enagbari is looking really attractive here at that edge position. Also, you have some elite wide receivers still yet on the board. Where do you see Las Vegas going?
I have them going with Drake London. I think that they have to consider taking a wide receiver after the whole Henry Ruggs situation. You have to wonder what they have outside in terms of overall talent. Is that going to be enough for Derek Carr? And Drake London is a great volume guy. He's going to fit in phenomenally with this offense. He can be a red zone threat as well with that 6'5" frame. I think Las Vegas is definitely considering that edge spot. Kingsley Edenbari, really good value here at this pick. However, I see Drake London being the actual selection for them.
Right. We see Drake London, the SoCal kid, relocating out to Las Vegas like the Raiders did a few years ago. Pick 26, we got the Los Angeles Chargers here now on the clock. Brandon Staley's done such a great job with this team. The defense is roaring. The offense looking the part as well. Justin Herbert's been great again this season, showing that the freshman campaign was not a fluke. Where do you think that they go here 26th overall?
I think once again, we are going to dip into that wide receiver room. We're going to have to replace Mike Williams in the offseason potentially with his contract. They haven't been able to get a deal done. Traylon Burks is a guy that is very similar in terms of his catch radius, his ability to be great in the red zone as well. Those are the big strengths for him, and that's exactly what Mike Williams is and what they will be missing if he does leave in free agency. I think this is a move to really for preventative maintenance for this team.
Pick 27 here, we've got the Buccaneers on the clock again. Remember, they're best known for winning the Super Bowl, then keeping all 22 starters. They've got some contract situations coming up, though, especially along the offensive line. There's still some good tackles out here that could make some sense. A little bit of interior offensive line play that could help them as well. There's a position I would specifically look at. That's running back. I'm interested to see where you have them going here 27th.
Yeah, it's weird because the whole Leonard Fournette situation makes it a little cloudy. Are they actually looking at that running back spot? They thought about trading Ronald Jones during the season. So that's something that is taken in consideration. You look at the running backs on the board. I think a guy like Kenneth Walker would be phenomenal in this area. I actually didn't opt to go with him. I looked at that tackle spot, and one of the best pass blockers in the country, Nicholas Pettit-Freer, is still here. I'm going to select him. This allows them to get off of the Donovan Smith contract, open up some more money to rework some deals. I think that this is a pick that is a money-saving move, and you get 5 years out of a contract for a tackle, which is a premium position to pay.
This really fits their scheme as well. Getting someone who can hold up in pass pro, as long as Nicholas Pettit-Freer can, is really helpful with how much they like to push the ball down the field. That's a key part of Byron Leftwich's offense there under Bruce Arians in Tampa Bay. They love to push the ball down the field. We've already seen how good of a pick Tristan Wirfs has been in pass protection. Nicholas Pettit-Freer has good upside as well in that area. Tom Brady is going to be able to sling the ball. He's currently leading the league in passing yards going into week 9 before the slate of games today. So they're adding another offensive tackle here. It just makes all the sense in the world. Phenomenal value here for Tampa Bay. Pick 28, we got the Detroit Lions. This pick comes from the Los Angeles Rams from the Jared Goff, Matt Stafford flip. Austin, with the Detroit Lions already addressing quarterback, they see an edge here on the board in Kingsley Enagbari, another one in Adam Anderson. Devin Lloyd could be a really nice fill linebacker for them. They're going to get some of that front seven help that I think a lot of the viewers were looking for. Pick 1. What do you think that they go with here?
It's tough because I so desperately want to take one of these edges here with Enagbari. Adam Anderson has an interesting situation around him. He was accused of something that we aren't going to specify on the channel, but he was forced to sit this last game. Really unfortunate news to hear about Adam Anderson. We will comment later when we find out more information. And then Drake Jackson, another one I'd love to see Detroit take. But I think it's crucial for them to address that wide receiver position. There's a new guy on the board that I'm definitely thinking about going with. That's Jameson Williams, the speedster from Alabama. Watched him in that LSU game. He was very, very impressive. This whole body of work has been terrific at Alabama. We thought it was going to be John Mechie that really stepped up this year, but Jameson Williams is a guy that is slightly underrated. I'm glad they finally have him on the actual draftable PFF board. I love him here at 28.
All preseason long, we talked about the Detroit Lions needing help at that quarterback position long-term and needing some real help at that wide receiver spot. You have them addressing it here. I think it's good value at both spots. Of course, pick 1, going with the quarterback, Matt Corral, coming back 28th here, Jameson Williams out of Alabama. 2 really good players that's going to help Detroit in a key area of need. Pick 29, we got the Tennessee Titans now on the board, and I think edge probably makes the most sense for this team as well. They did make some moves this offseason, position themselves to bring in some players. They just haven't had the most production yet from that edge position this year. Where do you see Tennessee going 29th overall?
Kingsley Edenbari is going to be the pick for me. I think they need edge, and then they're getting phenomenal value on Kingsley Edenbari still being here. There's a couple of picks there that I definitely thought about taking him, but now the Titans reap the benefits here for him falling to 29. He's going to be terrific in the run game for this team. And the Tennessee Titans just need some more front seven help in general. They are definitely on a roll now, actually, in the real NFL. We don't know the results of the game tonight. However, I think the Tennessee Titans are doing very well with the selection.
Kingsley Enagbari, a very, very good grab for the Tennessee Titans at this point. We've seen them make moves to address the defensive front. You're looking at Simmons a few years ago. They got really good value on him. I think Enagbari, another example of that here, 29th overall. Pick 30, we got the Green Bay Packers, who've had a ton of news and speculation around that team this week, specifically with Aaron Rodgers. And I think Jordan Love's first career start kind of showed maybe the question marks long term about what they have post Aaron Rodgers. Do you have concerns about Green Bay after this season, Austin? And then where do they go to try and maybe fix some of those concerns you have?
Yeah, it's tough because you're losing an MVP level player at a premium position. There's a lot to be concerned about because he covers areas of weaknesses for this team. And one of them is that wide receiver spot that I do have questions about long term with what they have. I'm going to go with Jahan Dotson. This is a guy that I'm comfortable mocking in the first round here on out. Has arguably the best hands in the entire class. I love watching him play. Good route runner. Doesn't have that elite size like some of these other guys do in this first round. However, he's just a really, really good football player.
Right, Dotson, you mentioned not having necessarily the best size like a guy like Drake London or Traylon Burks in this class. However, he's got phenomenal concentration, really good in traffic, catching the football, high points it well still, and he's competitive. He's going to make some of those plays with cornerbacks draped all over him. I think that's a key thing here for Green Bay as we transition to the Jordan Love era. Pick 31, we're looking at the Baltimore Ravens here now at this point. They've got some nice edges here that would fit their system. Of course, we did mention the situation around Adam Anderson. Also, where else could you be looking here? Running back could be interesting. We don't know what J.K. Dobbins is going to look like coming back off the injury. There's also offensive line. That makes a lot of sense here for them. Where do you see Baltimore going?
I'm actually going to go at that running back spot. I thought about it, and I think it makes too much sense because if they can have J.K. Dobbins and Kenneth Walker in this offense, that is going to be terrifying. And you have Lamar Jackson constantly having fresh legs running the football. That's what they do best. I think Kenneth Walker makes too much sense. I know some people might not love the running back in the first round thing, but Kenneth Walker is an absolute star, and I think he's going to be great at the next level.
Last year, they did a very good job going out, finding some wide receivers for Lamar Jackson. Of course, Rashad Bateman being one of them. You and I loved him all draft process last year. Kenneth Walker is one of the players this year that I am absolutely in love with. His ability to cut on a dime. He can stop, change directions, can cut both ways off both hips. He's just got really, really good change of direction ability and also really good quickness. Maybe not the best long speed in the class. At the end of the day, I think he's a phenomenal grab here for Baltimore. Gives you another wrinkle into that offense. And like you said, those fresh legs going to be key there for the team that runs the football more than any other team in the NFL. Now our final pick here in the first round. Remember, if you guys have enjoyed the mock draft to this point, leave a like on it. Also share it with your friends, something we don't ask you to do very often. We'd really love to have you share it with some other people you think would be interested in our content here. And 32nd overall now, we got the Arizona Cardinals. They've been great all year, sit at 8-1 currently. Where do you have the Cardinals going to improve for the future?
I think it's going to be pretty consistent. They need a corner, and there's a guy that's been playing super well this season for Georgia, Darian Kendrick, a familiar guy from last season that we thought could have been a first-round pick, ends up pulling his name, transferring. There's a lot that's gone on with him. However, he's showing why he was that guy at Clemson. Darian Kendrick is a huge reason why this Georgia defense is so tough. I love him here at 32.
And I know some people are probably looking, whoa, he's ranked 97th. Remember, PFF didn't even have Desmond Ridder ranked in their top 3 rounds. Of all players, and Desmond Ridder, now once they get their ratings corrected, their rankings in order, ended up being top 25. Their PFF's rankings aren't necessarily the end all be all for where these players actually belong. Looking through our results here, Austin, we'll scroll through quickly so everyone can get a quick refresher. Very interesting, some of the grades. You can see PFF has a real bias for that quarterback position as well as we go through here. A lot of quarterbacks get really good grades because of how they view the quarterback position. They always think that you should always be taking a quarterback. We kind of find ourselves a little bit in the middle here. All in all, though, I think a really good draft. What was your favorite pick to make?
I think I like the Jahan Dotson at the end of the first round, a player that very well could play himself into being a top 15 player in the class, period. And you're getting him potentially at 30. That's a hotter take. I do understand that, but I love Jahan Dotson at number 32, Green Bay. He very well could take over that wide receiver one spot once or if Devontae Adams leaves. Let's preface it and make sure the viewers know I'm not saying he's better than Devontae Adams, but if Devontae Adams leaves in the offseason, Jahan Dotson might have a ton of volume heading his way.
Yeah, I think you had some phenomenal picks here in at the end of the draft. Nicholas Pettit-Freer was one of my favorites. I think that makes the most sense for Tampa Bay schematically. Then Kenneth Walker, 31. That's another one that really excites me. Overall, I think you killed it in this mock draft. I think there's good reasoning behind every pick. Now, of course, will this be the way that it all shakes out? Maybe. Of course, we do have the mock draft wizard, Austin, making these selections. So I wouldn't rule it out. However, there's still a lot that can shape up, a lot that can change. That's why it's important that you guys hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on our future videos. Things change throughout the process. Things won't be the same next week or 2 weeks from now as they are right now. So make sure you hit that subscribe button, leave a like, again, comment for the jersey. Hopefully you guys did enjoy it, and we'll catch you in the very next Utility Sports video.